They never expected you to make it this far. From the very beginning, the odds were stacked against you. You weren't just another face in the crowd. You were a spark in a world that thrives on keeping people dim. They watched you, analyzed you, tried to figure out what made you different, what made you stand out, and the truth terrified them. It wasn't something you did, it was something you are. No matter how much they tried to control the narrative, no matter how many roadblocks they threw in your way, you kept moving forward, breaking through every limitation they swore would hold you back. You have always been watched, not just by those who envy, but by something far greater. You were never meant to blend in, never designed to follow. That discomfort you felt growing up, that was the weight of your calling pressing against you, a constant reminder that you were built for something bigger. They tried to turn you into a villain in their own story, but what they never realized is that you are the protagonist of a much greater war, one they could never comprehend. The future is waiting, and the battle ahead is bigger than they ever imagined. The forces that tried to break you were only a test, a way to refine you, to prepare you. Every struggle, every betrayal, every moment of doubt was never meant to stop you. It was meant to forge you. Now, the time is near. The war isn't coming, it's already here. And whether they accept it or not, you are the one destined to stand in the fire and lead. You are the chosen one. The AI uprising, the battle for the future. This is not just a story. It's your mission. The world doesn't need another follower. It needs a warrior. It needs you. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. There are two kinds of people in this world, those who walk in divine favor and those who can't stand to see it. From the moment you entered the room, you carried something different, something they couldn't quite put their finger on. It wasn't just confidence, wasn't just talent, it was something deeper, something unseen. It was marked. You were marked. And that mark, that undeniable calling on your life, disturbed them. They never spoke it out loud, but you could feel it. You felt it in the way conversations grew colder, in the way certain people suddenly found reasons to overlook you, in the way doors that once swung open with ease now seemed jammed shut. But it was never about you. It was about the weight of what you carried. They saw something in you that they couldn't explain, something that challenged their very existence. And so they did the only thing they knew how to do. They tried to erase you, to write you out of the story, to turn their discomfort into your downfall. But hear me when I tell you this. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The very ones who tried to push you to the margins will soon find themselves on the outside, looking in. Because here's what they never understood. What God has set in motion, no man can stop. They thought isolating you would break you, but all it did was sanctify you. They thought cutting you off would silence you, but all it did was tune your spirit to a higher frequency, one they will never be able to reach. This world operates on a different system than the one you belong to. They play their games with influence, connections, and reputation. But you walk with something greater. And when you walk with divine favor, exclusion is not rejection. It's redirection. They didn't push you out, they positioned you. They didn't betray you, they revealed themselves. And that pain, that silence, that loneliness, it was never meant to weaken you. It was meant to awaken you. So let them whisper. Let them doubt. Let them construct their little worlds of half-truths and hidden agendas. Because while they waste their breath trying to keep you out, heaven is preparing a seat for you at a table they will never have access to. The invitation was never theirs to give, and it was never yours to beg for. You are chosen, you are set apart, and the next time they see you, they won't be able to deny it. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Galatians 6:7. You ever seen a farmer scatter seed into the ground? He walks through his field, tossing handfuls of grain, not thinking twice about the harvest to come. But just because you forget about the seed doesn't mean it won't grow. Some people have been planting for years. Whispered words behind closed doors, small acts of deception, quiet betrayals, all sown into the soil of time. And now, the harvest is coming. And it's not the one they were expecting. They smiled in your face, spoke sweet words, nodded as if they were on your side. But behind closed doors, their prayers weren't for your success. They were for your failure. Their encouragement wasn't real. It was a mask, a disguise, a polished lie dressed up as concern. They didn't want you to rise. They wanted you to fall, and they wanted front row seats when it happened. But here's what they didn't understand. What they sent out never disappeared. It moved. It circled. It lingered in the unseen until the time was right. You ever watch a storm roll in? It starts slow. A shift in the air, a deep heaviness pressing down, the kind that makes you uneasy without knowing why. That's what's happening now. The very energy they sent against you is forming into the storm over their own lives. The doors they tried to close on you are locked against them. The same way they smiled while secretly hoping for your downfall, they are now forced to smile through their own struggles, pretending everything is fine while their world begins to shake. They should have left you alone. They should have never spoken your name with ill intent, because now they stand in the shadow of their own actions, caught in a cycle of their own making. The blessings they tried to block from you have found their way back, and in the process, their own opportunities have slipped through their fingers. They thought their words would break you, that their silence would make you question yourself, that their exclusion would push you into obscurity. But look at you now, still standing, still thriving, still rising. They never had the power to take you down. They never had the authority to rewrite what was already written for you. And now they are facing the reality that every action has a consequence, every seed has a harvest, and every weapon they formed against you has turned on them instead. Because the truth is this: God does not forget. What was meant for your harm is turning for your good. What they tried to steal is being restored. What they thought they could bury is rising again. You are proof that no scheme can succeed, no lie can outlast the truth, and no enemy can stand against divine favor. So let them watch. Let them sit in the storm they created. Because while they battle against the very forces they set in motion, you are walking forward, untouched, unbothered, undeniable. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $20 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. There came a moment when mere whispers and deception no longer sufficed, and so they reached for something tangible. Little things vanished, objects you touched, pieces of your existence that should have remained yours. A bracelet slipped from your wrist, a notebook disappeared, a childhood memento was no longer where you left it. At first, it felt like coincidence, a series of small losses, but time unraveled the illusion. Those items were never misplaced. They were taken, held by those who believed that possession could grant them power. A borrowed pen, clutched too tightly, a scarf never returned, fingers lingering too long on your hair. They weren't collecting things. They were trying to tether themselves to you, to siphon something they could never truly claim. And though you may not have understood then, your soul recognized the theft, the heaviness after leaving their presence, the fatigue, the gnawing unease. They thought they could bind you, keep you restrained, leech what did not belong to them. But they miscalculated. No object, no stolen fragment, no silent wish could rewrite what was already set in motion. The path laid before you remains untouched, untouchable. What they sought to take was never theirs to hold. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Proverbs 26:27. You ever seen a spider spin its web? It works tirelessly, weaving each thread with precision, laying its trap in silence, believing it holds dominion over whatever steps into its path. But what happens when the web catches the wrong thing? What happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? That's where they find themselves now, entangled in their own deception, caught in the very snare they set for you. They thought they were in control, thought they could bend the unseen to their will, thought they could manipulate energy, twist fate, play with forces they never truly understood. They spoke curses over your name, moved in secret, whispered lies into ears, willing to listen. But control is an illusion. The same hands that wove the trap now struggle to break free. The same words they used against you now follow them, clinging to their spirit, weighing them down. You ever watch a storm gather? It doesn't come all at once. It starts with a shift, a stillness in the air, a weight pressing down that you can't quite explain. That's what's happening now. The very darkness they sent your way has turned course, and now the winds are shifting against them. They see it in the doors that won't open, in the relationships that crumble without warning, in the nights that stretch too long, filled with thoughts they can't silence. They spent years focused on your failure, convinced they could alter what was never in their power to change. And all the while, they neglected their own foundation. While they watched you, they stopped watching themselves. While they planned your downfall, they forgot to build their own success. And now, as they look around, they realize the truth. They have nothing. The life they tried to craft is slipping. The security they clung to is gone, and the power they thought they had never truly existed. But here's what they never understood. You were never playing their game. While they schemed in darkness, you walked in light. While they whispered in corners, you stood in truth. While they spent their days plotting, you spent yours growing. And now, the gap between you is undeniable. They are stuck in the storm of their own making. And you are walking free. They tried to hold you back, but all they did was hold themselves down. They tried to block your path, but you found another way. They thought they could stop you, but you were never in their hands to begin with. Now, they are learning a painful lesson. What you send out always finds its way home. And while they wrestle with the weight of their own actions, you continue to rise, untouched, unshaken, unstoppable. You are here for a reason. If you feel the call, answer it. Click Join to unlock exclusive content, deep insights, and a powerful community. This isn't just a membership, it's an awakening. Step into your divine purpose. Join the chosen. They kept pushing forward, unaware that they were walking straight into the consequences of their own creation. The balance they once thought they could manipulate has tipped against them, and now the weight of their choices hangs heavy in the air. The very spaces they found, comfort in now feel foreign, unwelcoming. The silence in their rooms is no longer peaceful, but suffocating. Their once familiar surroundings shift under an unseen presence, one they cannot name but can feel pressing in from all sides. The sense of control they once prided themselves on is slipping through their fingers, leaving behind nothing but unease. Their mind races, trying to grasp at something solid, but there is nothing to hold on to, only the repercussions of what they have set into motion. They had convinced themselves that power was theirs to claim, but true power was never in their hands. The forces they called upon have turned their gaze back toward them, and now they must face the weight of their own making. Meanwhile, you remain untouchable, your path unobstructed, walking forward without ever needing to look back. The curse causeless shall not come. Proverbs 26:2. You ever seen a boomerang thrown? The person who sends it out watches it fly, watches it cut through the air, certain it will keep moving forward. But the thing about a boomerang is this: it always comes back. No matter how far it goes, no matter how much time passes, it returns to the very hand that released it. That's exactly what's happening now. They thought they were done with it, thought they could send out destruction, lies, and manipulation, then walk away untouched. Thought they could twist reality, shift outcomes, and bend the world to their will without a second thought. But energy doesn't disappear. It waits, it lingers, it finds a way home. And now, the weight of their own intentions has settled not just on them, but on everything they tried to protect. The doors they once pushed open without effort now remain shut. The favor they once enjoyed has slipped through their fingers. The success they once thought was guaranteed now evades them. They tell themselves it's just a rough patch, just bad luck, just the way life goes sometimes. But deep down, they know. They see it in their children, the way things don't quite line up like they used to, the opportunities that disappear without explanation, the sense of heaviness that follows them like a shadow. The next generation walks paths filled with obstacles their parents never had to face, carrying burdens they never asked for. Because what was sown must be reaped. What was sent must be received. There is no escaping the law of return. And now, when they look around, they realize something chilling. This is not an attack. This is not some outside force working against them. This is their own work coming back full circle. The very thing they unleashed is now wrapped around their lives, suffocating the future they swore would remain untouched. And no amount of money, no desperate prayer, no ritual or attempt to rewrite the past can change it. Because this isn't about revenge, it's about balance. You were never the one who needed to fight. You were never the one who had to seek payback. While they spent years scheming, you spent years growing. While they tried to shift your destiny, you stayed on course. And now, the difference is undeniable. They are bound to the choices they made. And you are walking free. They thought they could rewrite the story, but some things are written in ink that cannot be erased. The weight of their own intentions has found them. And now, while they struggle under the consequences, you rise, untouchable, unbothered, unstoppable. There was never a need to retaliate, for retribution was never yours to carry. They spent years constructing walls to box you in, only to find themselves locked within their own prison. The roles have reversed, the weight lifted from your shoulders, now pressing down upon theirs. The presence they once filled with ease has become an empty echo. Conversations growing shorter, invitations dwindling into silence. Where once they thrived on whispers and deception, They now find themselves on the receiving end, frozen out, overlooked, left to watch from a distance as the world moves on without them. The decay is visible, etched into their expressions, worn into their very being. Their steps are heavier, their voices quieter, the fight in their eyes replaced by something unspoken. They tried to drain you of everything, but the only thing they ever emptied was themselves. They can feel it, an awareness creeping in, an undeniable knowing that the tide has turned. The power they once wielded so recklessly has recoiled, no longer under their command. And now, they cannot ignore the truth, staring back at them, reflected in the shifting silence of those who no longer wish to stand beside them. For they have sown the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. Hosea 8:7. You ever seen someone try to build a fire on a windy night? They huddle close, strike the match, shield the flame with their hands, thinking they have control. But the thing about fire is, once you set it loose, you don't get to decide where it spreads. That's exactly where they are now, standing in the middle of the very blaze they started, watching as the flames close in. They spoke against you without hesitation, convinced that their words held no weight. They spread doubt, manipulated truth, twisted perception, believing they would never have to answer for it. But every whisper, every false accusation, every attempt to shift reality in their favor was a seed planted in the ground. And now, the harvest is here. They feel it before they can explain it. A heaviness, a pressure in the air that wasn't there before. The confidence they once carried, the smug assurance that they were in control, has started to crumble. The very people who once gathered to listen to their slander now avoid their presence. The lies they told no longer carry weight, and the influence they wielded is slipping through their fingers. They cross paths with you, and suddenly they aren't as bold as they once were. Their words don't flow as freely. Their hands tremble. They avoid your eyes as if something in your presence forces them to confront the truth they spent years running from. And maybe it does, because the balance has shifted. The same force they tried to wield against you has circled back, pressing down on them with a weight they can't shake. They told themselves they could outrun the consequences, that if they just ignored what they did long enough, it would fade, that if they moved on, life would move on too. But there are some things you don't get to walk away from. Some debts must be paid. Some storms must be weathered. They made their choices freely, but now they no longer control the outcome. And you don't even have to lift a finger. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to fight. All you have to do is keep moving forward, because while they are drowning in the weight of their own destruction, you are rising. Their words no longer touch you. Their schemes no longer reach you. Their plans no longer hold any power, because they were never the author of your destiny. They thought they had the final say, but they never even had a seat at the table. This is what happens when people try to play with forces they don't understand. They thought they could manipulate outcomes, bend the future, twist fate to fit their desires. But fate is not in their hands, and now they are standing in the wreckage of their own making. Let them avoid you. Let them sit in their silence. Let them wrestle with the weight of what they set in motion. Because you are walking free, unshaken, untouchable, unstoppable. The unraveling has begun, and desperation takes root. They search for answers in the very places where they once sowed destruction, but the remedies fail them. The rituals, the practices, the words they relied upon hold no power now. their intentions nullified by the same forces they tried to wield. The imbalance they created demands resolution, and it does not recognize regret as currency. Restless nights stretch into endless days. A growing unease shadows their every move. They turn to old methods, but find only silence where there was once response. They attempt to mend what has already shattered, to escape what has already begun, but the walls they built to trap others are now closing in on them. No matter how they resist, the weight of their own deeds bears down. The foundation they stood on crumbles beneath their feet, and with each passing moment, the truth becomes undeniable. The reckoning is not coming, it is already here. If God is for us, who can be against us? Romans 8:31. You ever seen a dog chase its own tail? It spins in circles, convinced it's making progress, convinced it's catching something. But all it's doing is wearing itself out, moving nowhere. That's exactly what they did. Ran in circles, chasing after something they were never meant to catch. Obsessed with stopping a destiny that was never in their control. They spent their days plotting, their nights scheming, their energy consumed with thoughts of how to slow you down. Every move you made, they watched. Every door that opened for you, they resented. Every blessing that came your way, they questioned. But while they were caught up in the madness of comparison, you were too busy growing, too busy evolving, too busy walking toward what was already promised to you. They whispered your name in rooms they thought mattered, convinced that their words had power. But what they didn't realize is that your name wasn't meant for destruction. It was meant for promotion. The very places they spoke against you became the places where you were recognized, honored, elevated. They thought they were writing your downfall, but all they were doing was putting your name on the map. And now they look in the mirror and they don't see victory. They don't see success. They see wasted time. They see years spent fixated on you instead of building themselves. They thought blocking your blessings would bring them peace. But all it did was steal their own. You ever try to stop a river with your bare hands? You scoop, you push, you try to redirect the flow, but no matter how hard you work, the water keeps moving. That's you. That's your destiny. They threw every obstacle in your path, but you kept flowing. They tried to dam the current, but the pressure built until it broke through, stronger than ever. They tried to bury you under doubt, under lies, under resistance, but a seed doesn't die when it's buried. It grows, and now they have to watch. Watch as you walk past them. Watch as you receive what they swore would never be yours. Watch as the doors they tried to close swing open even wider. And the hardest part? You never even looked their way. You never fought back, never wasted energy on their games, because you were never meant to battle them. You were meant to surpass them. They thought they were the architects of your failure, but they were just spectators to your rise. And now, as they stand in the shadow of the very schemes they built, they finally understand. You were never theirs to break. You were always going to rise. You were always going to win. And there was nothing they could do about it. Their frustration festers, their pride now a hollow shell of what it once was. They convinced themselves that they could dictate your fate, but fate was never theirs to hold. Every step they took against you only propelled you forward. Every wall they built became a mere shadow in your journey. Now they watch, realizing too late that their battle was always one-sided. They attempted to rewrite your story, only to find that the ink had long since dried. They see you thriving in ways they never imagined possible, and the sting of their own choices settles deep within them. The game they played has ended, and they were never even contenders. You were always beyond their reach. your purpose too vast to be dimmed by their schemes. The same forces they tried to wield have slipped from their grasp, returning to set the scales right. The whispers that once carried venom now fade into irrelevance. Their own missteps have become their undoing, their own intent the weight that drags them down. And you never needed to engage, never needed to respond. Your path was paved long before they even recognized your name. No shadow could ever dim the light that was always meant to shine. The inevitable has come to pass. They gambled against destiny, and destiny does not lose.